Hi, Tryhards. This is my second Twilight video of this fiscal year. I don't think I've talked about Twilight this much literally since I was reading the books in eighth grade, but I have a lot to say. It turns out I have a lot of pent up energy from all those years. So, anyway, welcome back to my channel. My name is Claire Holiday, and I'm a fantasy author. And I am obsessed with certain fantasy books, including Twilight. If you grew up reading or watching Twilight, like as the books were coming out, then you know what a wild turn it took towards the end of book three, and obviously, especially book four with Breaking Dawn. Now it's a meme with the whole imprinting on a baby, the insane amount of body horror that happened in book three. But that's not the direction that I thought it was going to go in. That's not the bag of goods that I was sold. As an eighth grader, I didn't know what Mormonism was, let alone that the fact that the author was Mormon was going to play such a big role in how the story was going to proceed. I had a very different idea of what would happen. And to this day, I think about that. So I want to talk to all of my Twihard girlies out there. And let's talk about what Twilight should have been. Because Bella getting married to Edward at 18, fresh out of graduating high school, and then immediately getting knocked up right after losing her virginity, and then having this whole pro-life debate amongst her and the other vampires, and then her child, who, don't worry, grows up very quickly, mentally and physically, and getting imprinted on by her former best friend, who was a part of the love triangle. That's what we were sold, that there was a love triangle. That was the whole point of Team Edward and Team Jacob. Let me tell you about my fan fiction. It's canon in this house as far as I'm concerned. First of all, the biggest mistake, the biggest error is in New Moon, Bella immediately takes Edward back. Now, this is a disgrace, right? Because especially in the books, you get this in the movies, but like when you read about it, I think some of the most effective writing Stephanie Myers does. A lot of debate about her quality of writing in general, but New Moon, I think she genuinely pulls off that heartbreak, that anguish, that desperation if you're still in love with somebody who basically doesn't want, or so you presume, doesn't want anything to do with you anymore. And Bella, on top of that, purposefully putting herself in dangerous situations, literally just to see a hallucination of Edward. This girl was down bad. She would have loved tortured poets. While I completely understand that if Alice came to her and was like, Edward's in danger and you're the only one that can save him, of course she's going to go. Like, that makes total sense to me. I vibe with all of that. What I don't vibe with, and not just on like a pearl clutching moralistic thing, but a storytelling plot thing, is that her taking Edward back kills a lot of momentum. I feel like she should be able to revel in this righteous anger that she should have against Edward, because what he did to her was not right. He ditched her. And I think it was irresponsible of him, and frankly, kind of the Cullens in general, to bring this girl into the fold, this mortal human girl, in as deep as she was, to where it's like, okay, now she knows that vampires exist. Oh, these vampires wanted to kill her. Her life was in danger and she fell in love. You're gaslighting her into thinking that you don't love her anymore, which you do, Edward. And while Edward justified it because he didn't want Bella to be in danger anymore, it was incredibly reckless. And it is kind of hard to believe that none of the other Cullens, especially Esme and Dr. Sexy Daddy Cullen, didn't take him aside and go, oh no, we can't actually do that to Bella. That could cause an irreparable amount of mental anguish. And then because he thought Bella unalived herself, that means that he can go unalive himself, is immature and selfish and cruel to, even if Bella was dead, it's cruel to his family and to the other people that love him and could put them at risk. So I think it would behoove Edward to prove to Bella that he understand what he did by ditching her was wrong, that gaslighting her was wrong. While he may have had anxiety about her safety, not talking to her about it, not talking to her about his anxiety was wrong. and that then wanting to unalive himself in this very dramatic way was extremely wrong. They need to have this discussion on the page and over the course of time too. It shouldn't be like, oh, he expresses these things and then Bella's like, okay, I forgive you, we're in love again, haha. He needs to prove himself and prove that this experience, woke him up. I mean, frankly, these are actually really big grievances. This is what I imagine. Bella's giving him the cold shoulder. He thinks he's doing the most, right? He's bringing her flowers. He's helping her with homework. He's buying her things, taking her places. I guess Bella doesn't even care about all of that. He's buying her books, he's reading to her. Her dad is in trouble and he somehow saves him. He's doing all these things to try to prove himself and he's going above and beyond, or what he considers above and beyond, but Bella's still giving him the cold shoulder, like they're not kissing, they're not making out. There might be a few times where they come close, but she pulls away her hand, does one of those you know and of course he's frustrated. You see the clenched hand, but he's like trying to give her space, trying to be super respectful, and then finally he takes her to the woods and confronts her like, you're being distant from me and I don't understand. I'm doing this and this for you. And then that's when Bella, who's been calm and cool and collected, if not a little reserved from him, finally snaps. You gaslighted me. Lit. You said you didn't love me, and that was a lie. You ditched me for months on end and made me feel crazy. You want to know why I was doing these dangerous things? Now, that's not really on him, but he deserves to know this and he should feel guilty about it. And basically, she just has to lay it on. She has to scream. She has to shout. She deserves to have a big emotional response to Edward because he was not nice. He was bad. And it's not in Bella's character to be hyper emotional, but I think that one scene where she breaks would have been very satisfying, especially if we're like three-fourths of the way through Eclipse. That would have been a good scene. And then, of course, we get the resolution of him responding to her, being sorry to her, maybe begging for her forgiveness, like Edward down on his knees, literally like, I'm so sorry, please take me back. That would have been amazing. We deserve that. That's my number one gripe is at the end of New Moon, Bella taking Edward back immediately and there being absolutely zero consequences on Edward's end for everything that he put her through. My second gripe, and this is possibly even more serious than the first one, is that there was no real love triangle on the page. There were hints of it in New Moon, and then it dies immediately because Bella took Edward back immediately. But what if there was a world where Bella doesn't take Edward back, and while she's happy that he's home and that he's safe, she maybe remembers, like, oh yeah, my friend Jacob was there for me. My friend Jacob let me cry on his shoulders, but also knew when to give me space. And my friend Jacob is super hot and also a mythical creature, which is apparently her thing. I think we deserve to have, as the audience, a little bit more of the actual love triangle. Maybe she goes on a date with Jacob. Maybe she has an actual consensual kiss with Jacob, and it could be something where maybe because of the kiss, maybe even makeout session, she kind of realizes this is not bad. It's kind of hot, but I'm still kind of thinking about Edward the whole time at the end of the day. This is ultimately making me miss Edward. We could have a little bit of that introspection in there, but I think her legitimately, even if it's only momentarily, choosing Jacob would be very satisfying for the audience. And actually, even if you are Team Edward, like me, I was Team Edward, it's fun to genuinely not know who is she going to choose. Now, I think deep down we all knew she was going to choose Edward because the first book was entirely dedicated to how in love with and obsessed with Edward she is. But it would have been fun if in the majority of Eclipse we genuinely didn't know who she was going to end up with. I think we would have had a lot of fun. There's no engagement. We're not there yet. We're not ready for that. No one's emotionally ready for that yet. Edward still has to win her heart back. I think what we all deserved, possibly more than anything else, is a fist fight between Jacob and Edward shirtless. It's kind of insane given, like, the characters involved, what they are, and the stakes, that they don't fight each other. And I'm not saying there has to be blood or anything crazy like that, but, they're getting heated. They both feel like they have Bella's best interest at heart. Edward is frustrated because he ultimately feels like Bella is maybe feeding Jacob's ego, or like he doesn't really know her the way Edward does, the real her. And then, of course, Jacob's like, well, you were gone for a year. So how could you possibly know her? Because if you did, you wouldn't have left her for a year and like devastated her. And I was there to pick up the pieces. And then there's a little push. Who would push first? Probably Jacob, because he's significantly younger than Edward, so a little bit more immature than Edward. And so he pushes first and maybe pushes again. And Edward's trying to not sink to his level, but he says something. Oh, something that just really gets under his skin. Like, she deserves a real man, a warm blooded man like me. And maybe that's the thing that sets Edward off, right? And so he shoves Jacob. And of course, once Edward starts shoving, because he's so strong, and Jacob's strong too, but Edward's so casually strong, that that's when they got to get a little crazy. And maybe it's in the middle of summer and it's hot. And of course, Jacob has to take off his shirt constantly. And maybe Edward is like, well, me too. There's not really a justification for Edward other than he just wants to show off. And of course, Bella's like, no, no, stop it, guys. They're wrestling. Trees are falling in the woods. They're literally like rolling on top of each other, which isn't it cruel that not only did we not get that in the books, we especially did not get that on film? Jacob's kind of holding back because he doesn't turn into a wolf yet, and Edward's kind of holding back because he hasn't, I guess, like, just snapped his neck yet, but they're definitely getting their frustrations out on each other, and it's causing a ruckus. Oh, actually, what I love is the idea of everybody, the wolves and the vampires and the Cullens, coming around and literally forming a circle and watching this happen. I think that also sounds really fun. And they're like cheering and jeering everybody. Doesn't that sound amazing? And it could be something where eventually Jacob does turn into a wolf, and you can see there's crazy comes out in Edward's eyes. They kind of start to turn black and he's breathing a little bit too heavy. And then the wolves have to hold Jacob back and the Cullens have to hold Edward back. And Bella has to run in between them and be like, stop, everybody, stop. This can't go on this way. You guys are acting like fools, or whatever she's going to say, whatever lie she's going to tell, because she liked it too. And of course, several chapters later, they're going to both feel really bad and they're going to apologize to her. And then by the end of Eclipse, or maybe beginning of Breaking Dawn, they apologize to each other and then they can be bros or whatever. But in my universe of Twilight, like I said, there is certainly no babies. There's maybe a proposal and maybe a marriage in like the prologue or the very, very end of Breaking Dawn. But I think all these things should be drawn out between the two books because it's also fun. It's sexy. It's the will they, won't they. It feels more appropriate for what's supposed to be a bunch of teenagers, even Edward's not technically a teenager, but kind of. And then towards the middle of Breaking Dawn, when Bella actually chooses Edward, and she does it understanding all of his flaws, but also because she recognizes change and growth and sacrifice on his end. She makes that choice for him. And then it's just all the more satisfying for us as the audience because we know that Edward is not perfect but willing to go above and beyond for her. And we can see the connection, even though she has other options. So it's not just that he's the hottest mythical guy in town. It's because their love for each other is genuine and real. And then it would be so much more satisfying as the audience. But for books that are meant for tweens and teenagers and young adults, it just got way too adult, and not too adult in like the fun, spicy, sexy way. Too adult in the like, we're going to just get married and settle down and play house like for a book and a half. Anyway, that is my Twilight fan fiction. Let me know if you guys have your own canon around this series, how you feel about my ideas, or if you're Team Edward and Team Jacob. Should we start that war up again? Just so you guys know, I have some posts all over the place, but I am doing work with me lives Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. So if you want to hang out with me, work with me, be productive for an hour, need some accountability, I have some lo-fi music going. I'm here to work, but we can keep each other accountable. Like I said, it's going to be every weekday at 10 a.m. and I hope to see you guys there. Bye.